Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, adoption of the agenda. Staff, are there any changes to the agenda? Commissioners, any changes? If hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda for today? So moved. Mr. Loball. Mr. Siebold, second. All in favor? It's unanimous. We'll go with today's agenda. First up is a special welcome. We have Mayor Alan Perry, who's going to join us this afternoon to welcome our three new members, Margaret Hewitt, Bill Redmond, and Jeff Turnbull. Mayor, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Chair. It's a pleasure to be here today to address y'all. I know I was supposed to have been here last year, but it was the day after we adopted our strategic action plan for the next 3 years, which is our guiding document. And the Planning Commission plays a pivotal role in how we move forward as a town, how we move forward in managing our growth. And I welcome the three new and I welcome the returning members to the Planning Commission. Your role is very vital to what we do. And I want you to remember that as you go through your position, God bless you, and through your learnings, I want you to remember one thing. Don't let emotion drive your decision. This is about our community. And often we see emotion stepping up and taking the lead. We've made changes to the land management ordinance. We had some more changes last night that will be coming for a second reading. Pay attention to those changes as y'all look at the projects that come before you and as you have, well, meetings like this today. Council is set on protecting the island and the growth, making certain that we're in a good place and our character remains intact. We also are committed to make certain that we have a workforce here that's very pivotal to our future endeavors. So you have a very important job in front of y'all. This year is going to be a lot of changes. We're going to be creating a task force with the chair or his designee for the LMO rewrite, Land Management Ordinance rewrite. And we're going to have other chairs be a part of that task force as well. We're going to have a lot of meetings and we're going to address a lot of topics, but we're going to right the ship and put some things back in the bottle that have been unleashed where growth has gotten out of control. And it's going to start here with y'all. So thank you for giving of your time to this community, and to this. So thank y'all and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 16th meeting? Ms. Hewitt, second. Okay, all in favor, say aye. All right, that's unanimous. Unfinished business. There is no unfinished business. So we'll move on to new business. The first item of new business, item A, will be for a public hearing and a decision by the Planning Commission on a street name application. A motion and vote by the commission are needed. So item A is STDV 00006612025, consideration of a public hearing for a street name request from Brendan Barr of One Street Residential, proposing to name 4 new streets off North Point Circle. The affected parcels are identified on Beaufort County tax maps as indicated in your agenda. And I'm going to declare this an open public hearing at this time and invite Deputy Fire Chief Johaida Pfister for the presentation.
Good afternoon. I am Johanna Pfister. I am one of the deputy chiefs at Fire Rescue. I'm just going to say a few words about addressing, and then I'm going to turn it over to our communications manager to present. But just because we have new people, a lot of times people wonder why the fire department does the street naming and addressing, and it is because it directly affects our 911 response. So we have our own 911 center on Hilton Head Island, and so anytime you call 911, it comes into our center. And the addressing is done with the standards of the National Emergency Numbering Association. So that is why street naming and addressing gets presented by the fire department, and we make the decisions. We vet them, we make sure that we don't continue to have duplications within the county, and that we don't have duplications within the town either. So with that, I am going to let Kathleen present the street names.
Hello everyone, it's good to see you again. My name is Kathleen Litchfield. I'm the 911 communications manager, and give me just a second to pull this up here. So we are here today for you all to review and approve 4 proposed street names that will be making up the North Point Workforce Housing Development. Those street names include North Point Circle, Fairfield Station, Dunebrook Court, and Fencliff Trail. They will provide direct access to the proposed multifamily dwelling units located in this proposed development. So we'll start with North Point Circle. North Point Circle has been around for a long time, since the 1980s, was originally supposed to be a commercial development. Over time, it has transitioned to the current vision of being workforce housing. And that name North Point has been around for many years. It meets the criterion of the Land Management Ordinance because it's a name that has long been associated with this parcel. And we're also removing the E at the end of North Point to rectify the unconventional spelling. It's just unnecessary. Fairfield Station. The name Fairfield Station, that refers to the Fairfield plantation that was located where these parcels are now located. Once again, it's associated with, it meets Land Management Ordinance because it is associated with the history of the parcel. And also this Fairfield Station Road happens to run in front of the Fairfield Station Post Office. Dunebrook Court combines the imagery of the small dunes found along the ocean and a freshwater stream or creek, also known as a brook. This meets the Land Management Ordinance because it refers to natural features located on the landscape. And finally, Fencliff Trail. It runs along a bioswale. I had to Google this word myself, I apologize. It's kind of a man-made marshy area that's a buffer to a wetland area. And it meets the Land Management Ordinance because it's associated with natural and man-made features within the parcel. So, I used my very poor paint skills to try to give you all an idea here of where exactly this is going to be located. You can see that this building 213, that is the location of the post office on the north end of the island, to give you an idea of where this is going to be. Here's an aerial view provided by the developers that show exactly where this is going to be located. And here is the site plan with the 4 different streets. You can see Fairfield Station here, North Point Circle, which will be the main road running through here, Fencliff Trail, and also Dunebrook Court over on this side. North Point Circle, Fairfield Station, Dunebrook Court, and Fencliff Trail all meet the criteria set out by the Land Management Ordinance. We vetted it, and we recommend that you accept these street names. Do any of y'all have any questions?
questions? I invite the public. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, bring it up here. Could we have a motion to approve those? So moved by Mr. Lobo.
I'll make a motion that we approve the names as submitted.
Second?
Second.
Second. Any further
Sorry. I make a motion that we approve the names as submitted. And I'll second.
And no further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? It's unanimous. Kathleen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item of new business will be for a public hearing and planning commission discussion. You'll recall that last month, we recommended to staff to proceed with this LMO text amendment, and we're bringing it back here. Staff is bringing it back here for our review. So at this point, I'll open public hearing and invite Director of Strategic Initiatives, Ben Brown, for the presentation.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. It's an honor to be here today. The last opportunity I had to support the Planning Commission was back in March. That was when we proposed the text amendments as well as the zoning map amendment for the North Point Initiative. And in large part, my original involvement with this application goes back to the work that the town had been doing with North Point. Joel Taylor, the CEO of the hospital, reached out to me about 2 years ago and was asking questions about how the town is addressing workforce housing. And one of the questions from Joel was that he and his team were having a lot of challenges recruiting trained folks to serve the hospital. And he also explained that they had some abandoned offices on the hospital's campus on Bethea Drive. And these are the offices that have been sitting vacant since 2016, since Hurricane Matthew. And the question was, could these offices be repurposed for workforce housing? And as the chairman had mentioned at the last meeting, the applicant had asked the Planning Commission, would the Planning Commission be interested in advancing a text amendment application? Because an application like this requires both an amendment to the text of the LMO, which we'll talk about in just a second, as well as an amendment to the map. And the map is the PD2 overlay as part of the master plan for the hospital campus. So we're gonna break this up into two sections, and I know the applicant's here today to provide a thorough report on the ZMA portion, and I'm gonna tee it up by talking about the text amendment. The purpose of the amendment, and this was discussed with the Planning Commission, Sean Leininger was in front of you last month, and talked about addressing the shortage of housing for essential workers, healthcare, first responders, service providers, and a whole lot more, and to allow workforce housing as a conditional use in the medical district. Currently, and this was discussed briefly with the Planning Commission at the last meeting, but there's a provision in the LMO that would allow workforce housing in the medical district, but it's only by the conversion. You would have to convert the existing buildings into workforce housing. And that doesn't work on this property for a few reasons. In large part, it's the existing condition of the buildings, as well as that formula for conversion just really isn't feasible for the site. And you asked us at the last meeting to share some photographs, and I'll show those to you in just a minute. Those were also included in your packet. We also want to ensure compatibility with the existing medical purpose, the hospital, the clinics, the related services. One of the questions that has come up recently is, okay, if housing is allowed in the medical district, if workforce housing is allowed in the medical district, is that going to push out any of the medical uses? And the way this is structured, and this should be very clear after we go through the text amendments as well as the ZMA amendment, but this is a two-part concurrent process. We have to amend the text, and then we have to amend the map. And it's essentially a belt and suspenders approach, where if this were successful, this is only allowing workforce housing on the 12.6 acres that we'll discuss today. Here's the parcel, and it is 1, 2, 3 parcels I think we all know the location. We have some more maps as the presentation goes on today. There's a lot of wetlands on the property, and right here is the existing office building. These are the outpatient buildings. It's about 24,000 square feet. Here's some existing photographs. As you can see, it's not what you wouldn't suspect from something that's been abandoned since 2016. We can see that, as we saw on the vicinity map, we have Hilton Head Plantation. To go back to the map, that's here on our northwest. We have Main Street to the south. And then we have the text amendments, and this is up on the screen more for illustrative purposes than to actually be able to read them. But in your staff reports, we have the actual amendments. And I'll go through these relatively quickly and slow down wherever the Planning Commission has questions. And I know the chairman will have a public hearing for the text amendments as well as a public hearing for the zoning map amendment. And we'll talk through what the action of the Planning Commission is in just a moment. But the first amendment is to clearly allow the construction of new workforce housing in the medical district. Right now, it is only by commercial conversion, which has a formula for commercial conversion. But if we're going to allow the construction of new workforce housing, there needs to be a density in place to calibrate that. And the proposed density, and this came from the applicant, is 10 units per acre. To give some context, when we talked about North Point, that was ultimately 14 units per acre. And the amendment was not to exceed 15 units per acre. But we calibrated that. That was based on a variety of 1, 2, and 3, mostly 2 and 3 story buildings. And that's also on a major arterial. Bethea Drive is not a busy road, so the 10 units per acre is a more appropriate calibration for this location. We have some amendments to the text that would clearly allow, if permitted, the construction of new workforce housing in the medical district. And I'd like to make sure, and I open this up for discussion. I know you probably have some questions as you're reading through the staff report, but I will read a few of these amendments with the goal of starting some discussion. But when we talk about the under residential uses for mixed use development in the Med District shall be permitted either as part of a commercial conversion that includes workforce housing, or PD2 district overlay that includes workforce housing. So it's the two. It's either commercial conversion or it's part of that PD2 master plan. The next section, multifamily use in the medical district shall only be permitted either as part of a commercial conversion that includes workforce housing or part of a PD2 district overlay that includes workforce housing. The last section in this area, in the medical district, properties developed for workforce housing shall only be permitted either as part of a commercial conversion that includes workforce housing or as part of a PD2 district that includes workforce housing. The last section is the workforce housing program. This is the proposed amendment based on the direction that staff had received at the last Planning Commission meeting. In the medical district, if workforce housing development is not part of a commercial conversion, then the maximum density in any workforce housing development is 10 units per acre if at least 30% of all units within the development are workforce housing units. And Mr. Chairman, I can continue going, I can answer questions, it's whatever best supports you and your commission.
Why don't you continue?
Yes, sir.
Questions at the end of the presentation.
Then the next portion is this in compliance with the criteria in the land management ordinance? I won't read this to you because it's in your staff report, and I know everyone has already reviewed this criteria. The findings. Staff has found that this is in support of the criteria. It supports the economic growth and housing goals of the comprehensive plan. It responds to changing conditions by aligning development requirements with strategic objectives. Addresses a demonstrated community need for workforce housing. Upholds the intent of zoning regulations by allowing reasonable, limited increases in residential density when consistent with town goals. It ensures workforce housing development in the Med District is appropriate and compatible locations. And this goes back to, it's not allowed everywhere within the medical district. If this amendment is approved, if the corresponding ZMA is approved, it would only be allowed on the site that we're gonna review in just a few minutes as part of the ZMA. Today, the Planning Commission has the following actions. Recommend approval to Town Council, recommend denial to Town Council, recommend approval with conditions to Town Council, or postpone action to a specific date and time. These are our recommendations that the Planning Commission follow one of the four. I would encourage you to seek some discussion amongst yourself before deciding which avenue you want to pursue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. This time I'd like to invite public comment on this section of new business.
We do have quite a few people signed up to speak on this item, but they just in general wanted to speak on this housing. So I don't know if you want to take them now or after the next one.
Well, the next one is related to this one, so perhaps we'll just wait and
Okay.
at that time. So this time I'll bring it back up to the dais. Any discussion on this item?
I noticed that Mr. Brown put another memo out to the Planning Commission asking us to potentially postpone the action on the ZMA until September 17th and listing a number of areas that he believes further detail was required. I was wondering if we might have him discuss a little bit about some of those points.
Thank you. The bulk of the questions that staff has been receiving are more associated with the zoning map amendment. However, with respect to the text amendment, I want to make sure that the Planning Commission really understands the impact of the amendment, and also that if there are questions with respect to the ZMA, I wouldn't advance the text amendment separately. I would keep the two of them together. And it is staff's recommendation to delay action on the ZMA until the September meeting. With that in mind, and we'll talk more about that when that public hearing opens up, I would keep the two applications together. But I do want to make sure that if there are any questions from the Planning Commission with respect to any of these amendments, we have those addressed at the same time that we are reviewing the ZMA.
Thank you.
Yes, Swela?
Hi, Mr. Brown. I think this question is going to be for you too. So if we go look at the current text amendment under allowable principal uses, right now, are you suggesting that these three parcels remain flexible for things other than residential? Or are we suggesting that we're going to now commit to residential there and that's it in perpetuity?
The way in which the text amendment's drafted, we can make certain that it is only for residential. As it's drafted now, it would be either residential or medical related uses.
And when you say medical related uses, can you expand on that a little bit?
In the PD2 master plan, it refers to medical related uses. And clearly the outpatient offices are a medically related use. Housing is not.
Okay, so if I understand the maps we were presented the last time, we're basically using every buildable portion for workforce housing. So why would there be any need for medical use on those 3 parcels if we're committing them to workforce housing? Which is a commercial use, basically, yeah.
Going back to the map here. If it's the direction of the planning commission to only allow residential uses on this, we can absolutely craft that language to support that.
Well, I guess the question I'm asking is, what's the value to the town? I can understand the value to the property owner in 20 or 30 years if the building isn't maintained. They can always convert it back to medical uses. But what's the value to the town and its residents to not making a full-throated commitment to this being residential, and that's the end of it, not turning it to commercial backed up against a residential piece of property?
The only thing I can think of offhand is if the applicant did not advance the housing, it would still leave that door open for the hospital to put offices on that site.
Well, they can do that now, right? That's
They can do
by
that.
use, right?
They can do that now, and what this application is proposing is not to prohibit that, but also allow residential on the site. And what they're proposing is to put all residential on the site. Right now, by right, the text would allow offices on there. That's not changing. It still will allow offices on there, but that's not what they're proposing. Currently, it does not allow housing, and that's what they're asking for.
Okay, I guess again, from a resident's perspective, if we're gonna go through this effort and really sort of switch this up to a much more intense use than it's ever been. And this wasn't abandoned in 2016, because I personally was there in 2021 using the facilities, so it wasn't abandoned in 2016. But there are Hilton Head plantations up against it. And what I hear you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if for some reason this project doesn't go through, they could go ahead and develop it by right as renovate it and tear down the buildings, do medical offices. Is that a correct
Today,
understanding?
by right, yes, they could renovate the site for medical offices.
Okay, and also under the way the text amendment is written right now, in 10 or 15 years, if something should blow up and the workforce housing was no longer a structure that's desirable, they could turn that building into medical facilities or offices or whatever they wanted.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm just going to add on a comment to the Commissioner's comment.
I'm just going to add a comment that from my perspective, I'd see that as just keeping flexibility there to keep both possibilities, so that if for some reason 30 years down the road the buildings become derelict and get knocked down, then because that whole region is still medical, it would give flexibility to either build new workforce housing units in that spot or medical in that spot, which is still a designated medical area, is the only thing I would add to that.
Anyone else? Okay, could you go back to our options, our voting options slide? Okay, I think what I heard Mr. Brown say is that we want to keep the text amendment and the map amendment coinciding with each other. It's likely that the advice for the map amendment will be to delay until next month's meeting. So given that piece of advice, would anybody like to make a motion on the new business at hand?
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Whalen?
Yes, I think given that, we'll make a motion to postpone what's been discussed today, and we should not close the public hearing. We'll keep it open until September 17th. the next regular meeting?
That's exactly how I would phrase the motion. I would even go so far as to say September 17th, 2005 at 2 p.m.
2025.
2025 at 2 p.m. Thank you.
Do I have a second on that? Cordes, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, and stay up here for what's next. So item C will be again for a public hearing and commission discussion on the zoning map amendment. So this item is for consideration of an ordinance of the town of Hilton Head Island to amend the official zoning map with respect to the real property located at Bethay Drive to amend the Palmetto Headlands /HH Hospital Master Plan within the Planned Development Overlay District, PD2, for Beaufort County tax map parcels R510008, 0000337A, 0000, and R510008, 008, 0000337, 0000, and R510008, 008, 0000452, 0000, to change the allocated uses from commercial use to commercial or residential use, and to provide for severability and an effective date. This is now open to public hearing, and Mr. Brown, the floor is yours.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners. In large part because of my involvement with the North Point Initiative, and as the town has been recruiting to fill our open planning director position, I've been receiving a lot of questions about the text amendments as well as the corresponding ZMA. So I am happy that we were able to get through the text amendments fairly quickly, because it's hard to completely understand the full story without seeing the two together. And the text amendments and zoning map amendments are linked. The text amendment allows workforce housing in the medical district. Again, that's the construction of new workforce housing. And the ZMA, the PD2 master plan amendment, applies to the subject parcels and allows either, as we discussed, medical or residential uses. Currently, it only allows for those medical related uses. Staff, the planning staff has put together a map here to show the various uses that are permitted in the PD2 overlay. And the applicant requests amendment to the Palmetto Headlands and Hilton Head Hospital PD2 master plan for the 12.6 acres on Bethea Drive. The current medical zoning within the PD2 overlay only allows medical related uses. The proposal would add residential uses, including workforce housing for essential workers. Approval depends on the companion text amendment to the med district. And what staff is requesting today, and this is why we are recommending that the Planning Commission postpone action until the September meeting, is some additional information on design standards such as site layout, buffering, circulation, infrastructure, architecture, and open space. And I know the applicant has put a lot of time and effort into this, and they're going to present this in just a few minutes. And the goal of today is for the Planning Commission to ask questions, provide feedback, and be in a position to take action at the September meeting. This is where the additional details are included, and I know the applicant plans to address these today. And as we discussed, it is going to be staff's recommendation to postpone action until the September meeting. But I'm really hoping that based on today's discussion, the Planning Commission's questions will be answered, the public's questions will be answered, and the applicant will receive clear direction on what's asked of them before the September meeting. That ends my portion of the ZMA application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite public comment.
And sir, I know also the applicant is going to make a presentation.
Great, we'll start with the applicant.
Give us a moment to get sorted here. I guess Good afternoon, all. Thank you very much, Council, Town Manager, Mayor, for having us here today again. And I would be remiss to not acknowledge the staff as well. We've been engaged with the Town of Hilton Head since the beginning of the year and have had tremendous support from the likes of Ben, Sean, Michael, Trey, Nick Day, Michael, Brian, and Michelle, and many others. But just it's been a very collaborative, wonderful process. At the same time, while they were also entertaining a massive project of North Point, which we are so impressed by, and to the team and the town, anyone that's here, is a wonderful execution. We know how difficult it is, and the patience and excellence that's went through. So wonderful applaud to that team as well.
Hey, Keith, for those that
Yes.
might not have been here at our last meeting, can you introduce yourselves?
Absolutely, yes. My name is Keith Kostreski, and Brian, my partner Brian Quinn. We form Abode Development. We're here with our partners CCDC and Novant Health. As you all know, those familiar names. Together we are, I guess I can click through here. I want to quickly walk through a quick agenda here. We're introducing our team. The team here is proposing, obviously you've heard before, the landowner is Novant Health. Abode will serve as the developer, and CCDC as a critical partner in a joint venture between the three organizations. CCDC will also serve as the property manager and operations. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. Just wanted to lay that out a bit. So just for the quick, this is not as long as it looks. Just wanted to walk through, we want to do an introduction to the team. Walk through formally what we are requesting. So Mr. Brown mentioned about the text amendment. We want to dive in a little bit deeper into the ZMA. And I know, Mr. Redmond, you had some questions with regards to the memo that came out with regards to need for additional information. We'd like to walk through some of those elements with you and also point out where those were in our initial application as well. So I just want to take a minute to do that. We also want to discuss our compliance with the workforce housing framework, and then do a quick proposed overview of development. I'd like to invite our friend, Mr. Taylor from Novant Health, and then talk through and have our friends from CCDC have a few minutes as well. Does that work for the group? All right, thank you. So just a quick, we talked through this quite a bit, but the team is Novant Health, Abode, and CCDC. We walked through that a bit. We also have support from the Community Foundation of the Low Country, as well as the LoveCo Fund, as part of our pre-development and planning efforts for this engagement. So just to review again for consideration, and I want to focus this on the ZMA, the zoning map amendment for parcels in the PD2 overlay at Palmetto Headlands and Hilton Head Hospital. The changes needed, as we mentioned again, I don't want to repeat myself, to allow new construction of multi-family workforce housing, which is currently limited to commercial conversion. Why does this matter? We've talked about many times in this room and throughout the public, the need for the critical need for attainable housing. It directly supports Novant Health, a wonderful provider of critical health services to our community, and it does align very well with the town's comprehensive plan and workforce housing framework. Our commitment back to you all, the town and the community, is that we will exceed mass and scale and aesthetic standards for compatibility within the environment. It's not a speculative environment. This supports essential workers in hospital operations, and via CCDC, this is a very long-term effort with CCDC, which has a 99-year commitment to helping support workforce housing on the island and throughout Jasper and Beaver counties. This has been a very collaborative process with the town and multiple stakeholders in the community, as mentioned. And then it's a very sustainable design, exploring renewable energy and high-quality builds that are up to modern-day standards to comply with some of the changing weather patterns that we do have and sometimes, unfortunately, face here in Hilton Head. Some of the hot spots on the proposed development would be, we are proposing 126 units on 12.6 acres. Only 5.5 of those acres are developable, so about 7 acres will be remain wetlands and green space. There'll be a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. We have made the commitment for 30% of those units to be at or below the 80% AMI level. And 1/3 of those units will be reserved for Hilton Head Hospital employees at the start. We anticipate growth and the change in needs. And also Hilton Head Hospital will have a right of first refusal as leases turn over. So as their needs change and as their workforce needs, they will be the first in line for those as part of this agreement. Our projected rents range from $1,600 to $3,500. That $3,500 number is reflective of the 3 bedrooms, so to accommodate that size. We'll have a community center, a pool, small pool, green space, very heavy landscape buffers, which we'll dive in deeper to, and then interconnected pathways, which also has a very place to the interconnected community to where many of these workers will be employed, or residents will be employed. Will be engineered to meet 2023 stormwater standards and exceed those guidelines, which Brian will talk to later. And then we will be at impervious coverage of greater than 30%, which is a high quality standard compared to recent developments. So I'll start here with the commitment to the workforce housing framework. There are 4 key tenets that we would like to speak to. A, that we are reserving 30% of the units committed to at or below 80% of AMI. Novant House priority. We're really a strong focus on the working middle, the workforce rate balancing, so we have middle income housing. Really, the sweet spot of this development will be focused on that 80 to 120% AMI, where we have so many of our workers in educators, healthcare professionals, service workers, many staff that work at the town and other support agencies that really are struggling to find places to live where they work and to really help build that culture of community, not only as a commercial partner, but also a resident of the island. And then local worker preference. So as we've discussed, as the tenet of the workforce housing framework is local residency, and CCDC as the property manager will enforce income, residency, and local worker preference provisions to ensure that all units are prioritized for Hilton Head essential service providers. I'll pause there. Any questions that I can answer with regards to the workforce housing framework?
Can I ask one? So I guess the one question is, under workforce rate balance, you talk about the other 70%, I believe, being up to or near the 120, but it does say maintaining a mix for the island's workforce. So are we saying that 100% of these units will be for Hilton Head Island workers?
We're saying that 30% will have that employment verification as part of the workforce housing framework. We have not, we want it to be employment verification, as many standard leases do. This is designed for active workers in the community. So they're contributing to, it is not designed to be a retirement complex. It is designed for active workers. So, and CCDC can comment that as well. But part of that lease will have an employment verification.
But where I'm going with that is, so will that other 70% be for workers who work on this island versus Bluffton, Okatee, Beaufort?
That's a great point. We will have priority for Hilton Head residents. It does make it challenging for the number of units we do have to limit only to Hilton Head. There will be preference. The workforce housing requirement, that 30% will meet that. We can dive into that a little bit more and understand some of the questions on that. It was a recent point brought up to us this week, so I want to dive into that. Not saying no to that, but it's something that I think we need to discuss with the team. Great question. Any other? Okay.
I have one. Can you go back one slide?
Sure. Sorry, I went forward. Oh boy.
One of your slides indicated that 1/3 of these units would be for Hilton Head Hospital employees. Is that?
Sorry, it is only going one direction. I apologize.
It's all right. I'm pretty sure I saw one of your slides said that 1/3 of these units
Yes.
would go to Hilton Head Hospital employees. Is that right?
Yes, 1/3 will be employed. Yes.
So just looking at the 30% requirement for workforce housing, those employees would be that entirety of the 30%. Is that?
No, thank you very much. We'll clarify that point. The Novant Health employees will be, they're just committing to that number to start, but that's not going to be just an 80% AMI. They have workers across all income bands, levels of employment, so from physicians, technicians, nurses, managers, and other staff I don't want to speak for Joel on that one, but it will be across the gamut. We will have, so it's not just for that 80%. So we did change some of the nomenclature on that because there was some confusion with 30% being 30%, but that's not the goal.
I'm just trying to, to the extent you can talk about it, trying to find out what percentage of these units could be available to other employers on the island potentially.
70, well, of the 80% AMI, or of the whole?
Of the workforce housing dedicated units.
I think that's hard for us to pinpoint the exact number now, but I will say, and maybe Mr. Taylor can speak to as well, the efforts of this development for Novant is across their employees. And if we look at that AMI restriction, that AMI rate, which I can get to it without screwing up the presentation here, maybe I'll get to it when we get to this as well.
What I'm gonna suggest is, let's let all three of your team members go through the presentation, and then we'll ask our questions. I think that'll be more efficient.
Looking through, so what is the concept? Looking at the Nightingale Commons. Here you've all seen the draft of, or the location map, where we are. We've seen some current photos of the site, which we've already seen. We don't need to do that again. But here's the current South Side campus. And here's the lineup of our conceptual mapping, conceptual drawing. Again, very clearly in red, conceptual for site plan and capacity study. We're looking at the walkability to the hospital. The loop around road there is Lamont. And then where the purple dots are there, that is Bethea Drive. That leads into the proposed development. For anyone to speak to development?
Yeah, you'll notice on this map here, this is obviously a conceptual drawing that we've been through with some of the town officials. I think it goes back to, well, our final meeting of the capacity study was April 22nd, when we reviewed some of this with fire department and some of the critical departments related to design in the community. So we have reviewed this with them related to the loops around for fire engine, EMS, working through a lot of this stuff. Obviously, we're still in the final stages of kind of pulling some of this together. But really pulling those center buildings back, that B and C, we'll show a slide in a second to show you kind of an overlay of what's existing versus what's here. You'll also notice the type C buffer that is written at the top there. Currently the PD2 headland, you're gonna hear us say PD2 a lot. We're gonna be referencing PD2 Headlands Hilton Head Hospital. So it kind of flows a little bit better when we keep on saying PD2. But this PD2 is required to have a type B buffer. So the type C buffer is something that we've recently been talking with Hilton Head Plantation on as well to kind of work together with them. The interconnected community aspect of this, you can see some walking trails around the perimeter of everything, connecting buildings in together, and then you see our kind of, our attempt at land planning here with our purple line here. But we've been talking with Joel and his facilities manager about an interconnected pathway in between Hilton Head Medical and this community. At the bottom of this, also kind of almost where the white starts, that is Main Street, and you can see the walkability to Main Street as well. But, here's what I'm kind of referring to. Do we have a laser on this? Is there a pointer on this? Does that show? That shows. Okay. Currently, some of the buildings that you've seen in place right here. This is obviously the overlay of the existing versus proposed, or the conceptual. I'm sorry, I should say conceptual. This is an old garage space that essentially is for storage. A lot of landscape materials and things like that are in there. The old pulmonary center is right on the line right here. That is back in this location. The larger building that I think everybody kind of recognizes with the pool behind it and the rehabilitation facility. If you look at kind of where that awning or drive under or motor court, whatever you want to call it, porte-cochere, the point right here is essentially the start of our building. So just as a reference point, if you're kind of looking through some of this, you're obviously seeing as well the larger kind of L-shaped building that's in the back right here. Currently, the trash reservoir or the trash pickup is right along that line of HHP as well. So You can see we're kind of pulling everything back, grouping the buildings together so that they're a little bit tighter, our interconnected aspect of things, you know, and we're really trying to promote this walkability.
Looking here at conceptual design of the building, as well as trying to present the look and feel of the community as well. So there'll be 4 of the buildings. Beneath is more of the updated architectural rendering, and then the above image is a design for how we like to keep the natural aesthetic and landscape around the site, truly encompassing much of the natural landscape there.
Through our discussions, recent discussions with some of the Hilton Head Plantation residents, which we are extremely sensitive to, and I know that we're going to have, you know, some input, obviously, which we certainly welcome. But the sides of the buildings, especially the ones facing Crooked Pond area, we're slated to not have windows, so nothing looking over. And then obviously our buffer, which we'll talk about in a second, that will help to kind of mitigate some of this as well. We are slated for 3 stories right now. The current height restriction, if the previous agenda item goes through, we're sitting at 45 feet, which is standard for that med district. Hilton Head Plantation, you know, a lot of their architecture is sitting at 35, just for reference.
Here's a quick snapshot. We don't need to read through it, but wanted to make sure we're encapsulating some of the design, engineering, and community integration highlights. And I think it will play well into the conversation when we talk about the PD2's design standards. But again, full compliance with stormwater ordinance, responsible designs that reflect the character, aesthetic, and expectations of Hilton Head. We're incorporating high-performance sustainable design principles, deep prioritization of environmental preservation, introducing the landscape buffer, which exceeds expectation with type C, strict adherence to the town's mass and scale requirements, maintaining that 30% impervious coverage, and then also adhering and deep support for the comprehensive strategic plan. I've outlined each of those line items to the comprehensive plan. We don't need to do that. I can make this available for you. But the keynotes that we've highlighted here are the relentless pursuit of excellence, which we look at the new standards for design and operational excellence, strategies for our people, obviously the demonstrated need for workforce housing, and commercial impact on the Main Street area as well, revitalizing and modernizing the economy, workforce. And we can walk through each of these, but we do have references in this document to where we include this in our narrative as well. So I'll take a moment here, give myself a breath, and talk to someone much more engaging than myself, Mr. Taylor from Novant Health.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Joel Taylor. I have the honor to lead Novant Health Hilton Medical Center. You know, this concept was really formed in our executive team about 2 years ago. And with thanks to Keith and Brian and the CCDC partners, before you is a real workable solution for certainly the hospital, but also our community. The desire is that it is workforce housing. So in my opinion, I think one of the initial questions was, this is 100% workforce housing across the bands of AMI. Now I will certainly yield to, Keith and Brian as we work through how do we finance it in those pieces. But this is a private solution to a known problem on Hilton Head Island. From a hospital operator standpoint, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 vacancies today. And so and right now, Hilton Head Hospital contracts approximately 30 contract labor personnel to fill a portion of those vacancies, just so we can continue to provide essential services. This is one of our efforts to solve that vacancy issue. It's a significant one. It's different, and we recognize that and appreciate, as Brian said, the feedback from Hilton Head Plantation. We want to be good neighbors. We are a community service. We are going to continue to do that. This is an opportunity, I think, that's pretty unique to us and can be a pretty substantial win for the entire community, not just the hospital. So appreciate the consideration. I will certainly be around to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
thank you and congratulations on 50 years.
Thank you very much.
What we'd like to do now, again, is talk a bit about the items with more regard to the PD2 overlay and the Pomelo Highlands neighborhood, which includes Hilton Head Plantation, specifically the Crooked Pond neighborhood within Hilton Head Plantation, as well as our alignment to the design standards within the overlay. So over the past month, I began conversations earnestly with Hilton Head Plantation about a month ago, mid-July, and having conversations about the proposed development and how we may collaborate together, being very transparent on communication and wanting to put ourselves out there to have those dialogues, to really share our proposal and proposed development, as well as receive feedback from those, especially in the Crooked Pond neighborhood, who will be impacted the most. We have, in that process, we've also engaged with the leadership from Hilton Head Plantation and asked that the Architecture Review Board, their ARB, be involved in our landscape design and noise and light mitigation. So we'll be looking to their design standards for within the neighborhood and bring them out to the guideline. So we want to make sure there was a very deep and earnest effort to have the best outcome possible. With regards to responsible design, buffers, setbacks, and neighborhood protection, Brian, I'll lean on you to lean in there to talk through some of these points.
Yeah, I don't know how how in tune you are with the buffers, and candidly, I have to reference the LMO restrictions quite a bit with buffers too, because there's quite a few things in there. But one thing that may stick out with the Type C buffer, and Mr. Keeper's here as well, the current standard for a Type C buffer, anywhere from 15 to 20 feet, and obviously some overstory trees as well. I believe in that is a 3-foot fence that is required through a Type C buffer. It can be a fence, or it can also be, I believe, a hedgerow of some sorts. We didn't feel like that was appropriate for full privacy, so we're actually elevating our Type C to engage with the, obviously the ARB's input as well. But we'd like to propose a 6-foot fence along the property line. And we've had some positive conversations. Obviously, any change is difficult at times, and we proactively have been trying to engage in conversations with everybody to make sure that we're really trying to be good neighbors. I mean, I've been here 19 years. Keith is a resident of Hilton Head Plantation. We really want to make sure that this is a community effort to try to lessen this as much as we possibly can.
Some other examples of our collaboration, protections, and so looking at, we've talked through many of these items as well. So I want to get to the meaningful discussion. When we talk, this is the buffers. But let me address kind of Mr. Redmond's initial item and to Ben's memo this week. The request for additional information was specifically around the relations to Pomelo Headlands and the PD2, and how our project aligns with the master plan design. So I want to walk through some of those elements. There were 9 that were included in our application. On the right-hand side, we do have that reference in the attachment of our application. But we really want to talk through and ask if there's any other information you think available or you would like. But again, the key points were arranged development of uses, clustering of development, integrated and circulation system, infrastructure and integration, street design, ownership and maintenance of open spaces, architectural guidelines and standards, and adequate acreage. We've made a very thoughtful effort in advance of our application to also put supporting detail in our application and how we would address this for PD2, for Pomelo Headlands. And we're open to any questions on that, or we can walk through each of these individually. But this was the piece of information that I believe that the town staff thought that would need more information for your review. So happy to walk through that.
Keith, I'd like to kind of just take I mean, our application did not specifically detail the PD2 Palmetto Headlands HAI hospital directly as a question and answer. There wasn't a Q&A, list out the A through H. But I respect the staff, I really do. And we've been working very closely together with this. It's in our application. It's in the details. We go back from April 22nd when we were going through our capacity study related to clustering of the development, the circulation system, the architectural details. All those items have been discussed, and you know, we do feel that we have what we need here. So I don't want this to go through as, you know, a non-prepared application, because we've worked our tails off to get this to where it is. But I'd like to actually just, you know, pause for a second and see if you guys have any questions of what else you feel like we're missing in this detail.
Could we possibly first hear from your CCDC partner?
Yes.
And kind of wrap
Yes.
things
Yes.
up, and then
Yes.
we'll pitch it back out to
Okay.
the community.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commission members. My name is Dave Wetmore. I'm the Vice Chairman of CCDC. And CCDC is all about workforce housing. That's the be-all and end-all why we exist. We are going to serve as the property manager for this project. But let me tell you a little bit about CCDC. So about 2 years ago, a bunch of concerned citizens got together and were worried about walking into restaurants, not being able to be served because portions of the restaurants were shut down due to lack of service. We had friends that had gone to the hospital and couldn't get admitted to a room and had to stay in a bed. Sorry, Joel, you probably know about this, but you know, they had to stay in a bed in a hallway until something opened up because there weren't enough nurses to take care of that patient. We've had difficulty getting skilled workers come to our house and take care of the problems that we had. So we decided, why don't we try to get together and see if we can do something about this? And we formed a 501c3 corporation about 2 years ago. And we started to work on trying to buy properties and dedicate them to workforce housing for 99 years. Now, why do you say 99 years? What the heck is that all about? Well, this problem exists throughout the United States, primarily in resort areas, but it's in towns, beach towns, and also ski towns. It's primarily because the property values get so high in those resort areas that the workers can't afford to live there. And lots of people have come up with solutions. We're doing something that's been done across the country. But what happened was they would put 15-year provisions on the projects, or they would have 10% or 20% or 30% of the project would be limited to workforce housing. And then after a certain period of time, it reverted to market rate. Whoever owned the project at that period of time, the price went way up and they made millions of dollars. We don't need to make any money. We have no profit motive whatsoever. We want to solve the workforce housing problem. And so we, by a deed, have a 99-year restriction to use our properties for the AMI levels at which we're serving. So what have we done to date? Well, we own 40 properties now. We bought 40 properties in the last 2 years. The only way we could do it is to raise money, because if you buy a property at market value, you cannot charge the rent which meets the AMI requirements, or you'll go broke. You'll be out of business so fast that it'll make your head spin. So we raised almost 27% of the $10.5 million we have in pure donations. We also have offered private mortgages, which offered a return which is less than what a bank would charge. We also had altruistic capital, so we went out to individuals and we convinced them that this is a problem that needs to be solved. And we have people that invested $3 million in 3% promissory notes. And so what we basically did was bend the cost curve in order to buy these properties. And so you can see we have both properties on Hilton Head and Bluffton. Why do we have that? Hilton Head did give us $600,000, and Beaufort County gave us $600,000. And we had to use those funds in the areas where the money had been given to us. So we are dedicated to workforce housing. That's the only thing we care about. All of this, just to make it clear, all of this property will be dedicated to workforce housing. The first question that somebody's got to ask is, do you work here on Hilton Head Island? Second question is, what is your income and what is your, how do you fit into that requirement? So that's going to be the first and foremost thing we ask. Now, if we can't fill the units with demand from workers, logically, then we'd open it up to others, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. So 100% is going to workers. That's what we're all about. Now, we want to solve the problem. Thank you.
That concludes our portion of the presentation. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll make the materials available to you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to open it up to public comment. Can you help us, staff?
Yes, the first one we have is Chester Williams. Peter Christian.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'm Peter Christian. I'm the general manager of Hilton Head Plantation. Sat in your seat for 7 years, so do a good job and know what you're going through. Hilton Head Plantation is an employer, and I employ over 100 people. I have 4 golf courses, I have a marina, I have a restaurant. They all need workers. They all come over that darn bridge. We are committed to solving the problem in many different ways. Our board president, Mark Ulefkowitz, right there, signed a letter to the Secretary of Transportation for the United States in support of the $200 million grant to do the westbound span of the bridge. That's how serious we think this problem is of getting workers onto Hilton Head Island. Many of these units could support many of my staff members, many of my security team, many of my other workers who commute long distances to come to work. The devil is always going to be in the details. And obviously, everybody wants workforce housing, but the rub is going to be, if it's close by someone else, how is it going to affect them? Councilmember Tuner, probably 2-3 months ago, contacted me and said, this may be something that pops up, and introduced me later on to Keith and his team. And Ms. Leskowitz and I met with them months before and suggested that they come to a public meeting in Hilton Head Plantation to make a presentation, which they did in July. Very well attended, members of the community attended, and we encouraged Keith and his team to reach out to the direct folks in Crooked Pond who are going to be affected by this. They further indicated that they would be willing to submit any plans to our ARB and work with our ARB to design the buffers, design the building, design the setbacks, which was very, very much accepted by us. The Crooked Pond folks have concerns, and I think those concerns need to be heard, need to be mitigated, and hopefully we can come up with a solution that works for everyone, because we are in desperate need of workforce housing. Every one of us knows that. It's not the only thing we need to solve this problem. The transportation piece is huge as well. So it needs to be several pronged. But so far, they have been very, very willing to work with us, and we want to continue to work with them. And I know that this is just the first step in a very long process. I appreciate your time and your commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Next.
Suzanne McClure.
Welcome.
Mr. Commissioner, or Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I am a resident at Crooked Pond Pool Association, and I am the treasurer of that association. And we are very concerned. We just recently found out about this, so we're not very prepared. But we had a resident who I think is here, Mr. Eric Frost, who put out a letter, and he CC'd the board. So we took that letter and sent it out to everybody in our community. We have 240 homeowners in our community. And we have collected comments galore, and I'm happy to give you guys this. I have another one at home if you want it. of concerns. There's one person in this batch who is all for workforce housing. And yes, I understand that we need workforce housing, but when you think about it, you've got lights shining in our eyes. You've got 200 parking spaces, I think, with all night long coming and going. It's because hospital workers are at different shifts and all that. That's right in our back doors. That's right in our windows. That's right in our whatever. And they talk about these 6-foot buffers, but they're talking about 3-story. You've got pools, private pools that these things are looking at. You've got drainage concerns. You've got, right now, we've had the fences cut behind where they're, right where they're talking about, and people have cut through the fence and come into the property. And you're only talking about putting a 6-foot buffer in there, and that buffer might be trees. And people can get through that. I live on Edgewood, which is the road that runs, I think, parallel to what they're doing. People walk in out of right near the firehouse. They walk into our community without going through the gate or anything. I live right there at the very, very end. I see them all the time coming through there. We have a lot of concerns about, security and like I said, lighting, noise. It's right by our pool. It's right by our tennis courts. I looked at the plan before I bought my house 7.5 years ago. It was a medical facility. It wasn't residential. It was going to be open from 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 or 6 at night. Maybe there would be not one night a week that it might be later, but it wasn't going to be 24/7. It wasn't going to be noise. This was a commercial, and it was designed that way. And now, it could affect our home prices. It could affect other things. And the one other thing I wanted to ask is, so if I heard right, 10 units per acre, 5 acres are developable. Therefore, that's 50 units. How did we get up to 126? They're putting all 126 on 5 acres. That doesn't meet any criteria. That was just identified by you guys. So, I know that lots of others want to speak too, so I don't want to take up any more time. But there's lots and lots and lots of things I think that really need to go into this, and we need to be better protected as homeowners in Crooked Pond.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Ron Zamuda.
Mr. Chairman, council members, I am the president of the Crooked Pond Association, and we do have a lot of concerns, like you heard from my treasurer, Suzanne. The one big thing that pointed out what Suzanne just said, 5 acres are buildable. 10 units per acre equals 50, in my book, any day. Why are we squeezing everything in there? If we have to build it like that, can we turn one of the buildings perpendicular to our fence line? Take it out, being parallel to our fence line, make it perpendicular. So then the people are not looking over our fence line. Let them look at their neighbors across the parking areas. I spoke with the fire department yesterday, right outside our main gate. And Brian Novask, I believe that was his name, is very nice. He gave me information about what they need for their trucks to go through. Now, I don't know if any of you ever been in Aqua Terra. I know people that live in there, and that's a tight community. He showed me a picture of one of their trucks with his arms or his legs fully extended. He goes from one parked car to the other parked car. I get that. I think it's tighter there than what it would be in this new community here. Even if they turn the buildings perpendicular to our fence line, they do have access to get in there. The height of the fence, Brian told us at a private meeting that the town regulation is only 6 feet. What is the height of the fence down Beach City Road by Palmetto Hall? That's not 6 feet. Fully against rezoning that to residential, keep it commercial, put the medical buildings back in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Larry Bornius.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for your service. My request is pretty simple. And as Peter alluded to, the devil's in the details. I think it's in the site plan. The orientation of the buildings are critical. I built my home 19 years ago. My wife Beth is here with me. We've lived there for close to 20 years. I'm at number 19, and I butt up against what would be the back elevation if the proposed site plan was approved. I could potentially have third-story occupants peering down on me. In our neighborhood, we have provisions, rules, and regulations for privacy. I imagine most all of you live in that same sort of condition. The thing that I would request is that as you're looking at this site plan, take into consideration what that will look like peering over the fence. That's not what we purchased 20 years ago. It's not what anyone in this room, I think, would want to see. And having said that, I'm an advocate for construction and development. I've earned my living and lived my life supporting that. And I understand the need for workforce housing. I think it is a critical thing. We can do the right thing by doing the right thing with the site plan and orienting, the amenities and the buildings in such a way that they won't impact the folks on the other side of the fence. I would also suggest that when we have what appears to be a final or, the first real draft of a site plan to go to the bank with, that we get to see what the occupants will see. And that can be done with a drone or possibly viewing towers that I know builders build, for certain lots where people want to see what their views look like. Okay, I know in this way it's in the reverse, but I think our privacy is of utmost importance. That's why we chose to live there, and I would hope that y'all would consider that. That's really all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry Wright?
Thank you all for seeing us. I have a few concerns. Was a traffic study done for Beach City Road, Main Street, any of that? What all those apartments will do for that area? They're small roads. When we purchased our home, that was zoned medical. And now you want me to not look at a single-story medical building, but a 3-story apartment complex? It's not right. The lighting, the noise, 3 stories, why does it have to be so big? You've already proved the one down by the post office. You're getting a lot of units in there. Do we need this much? And they're only saying 70% or 30% for the hospital. Where are the other 70% coming from? You don't know where they're coming from. They can't tell you where they're coming from. And I have to take exception. They have not worked with the Crooked Pond neighborhood. Letters were put in our mailbox this morning. So no, they have not consulted us. And we are angry.
Thank you.
Barbara Schroeder?
Thank you all as being a Crooked Pond homeowner. Oh, sorry. Thank you for seeing us, hearing us, and caring. Lived in Crooked Pond for 30 years. They're smaller lots, yes. However, we're a community, and the fact of 3 stories with a 6-foot fence and minimal buffer or clearance, we need affordable housing. We've needed it for 30 years. And all my predecessors that just talked, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Frost?
Good afternoon. My name's Eric Frost. My wife and I live on 26 Edgewood. If you look at the pictures that came up of the existing site and you peer through the bamboo, you will see my house. So that's how close we are. We're about, I'm trying to think, the existing parking lot that's there is about 20 feet from the Hilton Head Plantation fence. So it's right there. I'm gonna just briefly share my story. Others have done the same. We started a search looking for a place to live about 5 years ago. We looked all over the East Coast. We picked Hilton Head Island because I read that there was socially responsible development. We love the fact you keep the trees, the signage is back, you do all these things to kind of keep it natural. And we picked a gated community. So we wanted the security of a gated community. So I retired, bought a house in the middle of COVID, which was a really adventure for us. We have improved it. We've actually spent more on improvements than we paid for the house at this point. It is our forever home, as long as I can be upright and take care of the house. I think this is, I understand the need for it, really do. But this is really gonna fundamentally change our neighborhood. It's quiet now, it's just a great little neighborhood. And I'm concerned about things like flexibility. We mentioned, you know, keeping it for medical use as well as residential. What if they put up the apartments and then they wanna stick in some medical offices in between, or an urgent care center, or whatever else on the same property? I'm also concerned long-term. The hospital is turned over several times. What happens if it gets sold out again? What if they want to sell the property that the apartments sit on? Those are all things that we just, if we're going to be there forever, this could be 5 years, 10 years, whatever, as long as I'm still here. I'm also concerned about the financial viability of it. You know, if you get 30% from the hospital, you got 70% elsewhere. To make it viable, you got to have the units filled. So what happens if, and may not happen, but it may happen. What if you fill 3/4 of them and it's not viable and you got to fill the other quarter? Are you going to start changing the rules and letting in other people? I also have concern with only one person in each unit. So if you can have 6 people in a 3-bedroom, you have 1 that works in the hospital and 5 who don't. So who are the other 5 people? Probably husbands, wives, it could be kids, I don't know, but that is a concern. I do have to admit, I did speak with Keith. He's been open with his plans and been very helpful. He's listened. We've listened to the things that they've got planned, but we still have concerns. I'll be honest, I've been here 5 years. This island's becoming too developed. I purposely didn't pick Florida, and it's starting to feel like Florida to me, with traffic and with everything that's going on. It really does. So I hope you listen to us, and be great if we could find another place for this. Understand everybody has the same thought. We want it, but we just don't want it next to us. Well, lucky us, it's next to us. So if it's gonna happen, we really gotta talk a lot more. We need a taller fence. We need more things done to really reduce the impact on our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Loretta Bryn.
I'm a next door neighbor of Eric's, and I'm a little concerned about the upkeep of the property by the CCDC, who maintain the property of the medical buildings that are there now that are in disrepair. I mean, 5 years down the road, they talk, you know, what's gonna happen to it? Are they still gonna manage it? And is there anyone over them who can oversee it through the town of Hilton Head? I mean, we've lived in this house less than a year, and we bought it for the privacy of it. We have an easement property on one side, and we have the woods in front of us, which now we're gonna have a 3-story apartment building. And I'm not happy with the additional lights, noise, and maybe even potential flooding. Eric's been out there up to his knees digging out the drain because of the flooding, and we're gonna have all that extra water and stuff coming through that area. So that's my concern.
Thank you.
And that's everyone who signed up for public comment.
Okay, would anybody else like to opine? All right, well, we will close the public hearing and bring it back up to the dais here.
Mr. Chairman, could you please reopen, do not close the public hearing? Yeah, close the public comment.
That's right, because we're gonna keep this going until our next meeting next month, so thank you. But I will bring it back up to us. Any questions, comments?
I guess the one question I have is loom factor, which I think we heard from neighbors. And loom factor is not necessarily good or bad, it is what it is. What is the view today from a property line to a bunch of dilapidated buildings is an angle. There's a proposed, obviously, drawing of 3 stories. There's a loom factor associated with that. It doesn't necessarily mean that the 3-story ones create a greater loom factor if they're pulled back. But it would be interesting just to know how that loom factor is seen from the adjacent property line, and or how that might change depending on what type of a barrier line that goes down there that might mitigate some of that. And that's a general comment. I don't have the answers to that.
I'm wondering if the presentation that was made today will be made available for us to look at more between now and the next meeting. There's a lot of good information in there. I'd like to wonder if we would have access to that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add, the reason that staff was not able to prepare a recommendation was because we need more information. And I suspect that the applicant will provide that information in advance of a staff recommendation being prepared and being presented to you, hopefully at the September meeting.
Anyone else? Ms. Witt.
I don't know if this is a question for Brian or for Keith. Who actually owns the land and the building when this is all done?
Current owner is Novant Health. We are engaging in a joint venture between Novant Health, CCDC, and Abode as the landowners. And do you want to speak anything about the? Okay, so it will be in a joint venture. So that is
So it's going to be a separate corporation?
Yes.
That's set up, and who's the primary, who is primarily responsible for that land and building?
CCDC.
So that's interesting. The other question I have is that one of the things we talked about, and I don't think you were here, Brian, at the last planning commission meeting, was the drainage issue. And you did bring up a map that showed the wetlands. I'm not going to make you go through that. Have you gotten a current U.S. geological map survey of the wetland situation as it exists now? And
Yes.
what is the date of that survey?
And we can, I do actually have it if you'd like to review it, or we can submit it with the packet. But
You are going to submit it with the
there you
packet?
go.
Or?
There you go. Supporting documents, wetlands, right there, middle. This was done, I believe, in February of this year.
Okay, is this a surface geological survey? Or, because I do know that area of Crooked Pond, and Peter can correct me, the people who live there can correct me if I'm wrong, there's a big sort of, I don't know what you call it, a drainage thing that runs on the northeast side of Crooked Pond, right? And then I know that we've heard from some of the residents, so, and I know that down off of Hospital Center Boulevard where it meets Maid Street, it will also accumulate, water will accumulate. So are you at the point you can share with us how you're going to address the drainage, and are you going to go beyond what standard, because this is a much more intense impervious use than was on the property? I mean, not just simply from the structure's perspective, the sewage, the water use, the pool. So, you know, is there gonna be over-the-top engineering, and is there any subsurface, water, issues that we need to know about, through the survey?
When we go through the process and we intend to have a major project review, which, I mean, we've got one on the docket today, obviously, right? That's whenever we're gonna be presenting our civil engineering and all the drainage studies, percolation tests, all the things that, you know, they probed the land with. It is a civil engineer item that they're going to be running through all the drainage solutions. Some of the runoff itself, I mean, there's substantial calculations that happen within that first 6 inches of water, which is realistically most of the time what the majority of the contaminants are, is within that 6 inches. But preliminarily, we have, can you guys see my cursor on your, okay.
Yeah.
So preliminarily, we do have, obviously, we can't dump up, you know, we can't watershed into the wetlands. So we do have a collection system that is going to go along the outside of the parking lot system. Obviously, when I say this, I'm speaking on behalf of, you know, a conceptual plan here. By ordinance and by design, we're not allowed to throw any water the opposite direction. Working together of any of the additional watershed that occurs in this area, we're absolutely open to. Our PD2 plan through, is this it, Keith? Sorry. Yes. Where's the drainage? Yes. Where's the presentation? Okay. Oh, Headlands Road. Go to Headlands Road. There you go. This is it right here. I apologize. So the PD2 master plan, now given, I recognize, I mean, we're all reading the same thing, November 1988. However, there is a drainage system that's currently in place. Our parcels are right in here, where the portion is. There's also, you know, we don't have any of the details related to the additional, you know, RM4 district over here and how they officially drain everything. I would imagine they've got some interconnected drainage systems that, you know, need to be, it sounds like, you know, need to work together on it, but it's not part of our actual drainage system itself. I don't know if this is kind of answering some of the questions, but the drainage plan itself is,
Yeah, so let me just, from a civil engineering perspective, once you get this done, and you know, we've heard the Crooked Pond people sort of share their concerns.
Certainly.
And I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to ensure that, especially as you come down to the point of the pie here, where it all kind of like drains to, that that's a appropriate engineering system, not for the site, but that it, whatever you do can be mitigated on the other side of that property line? That, I mean, how are you measuring what the situation is now? You know, we talked about traffic before if you were here.
Sure.
So you know there's a certain situation there.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to measure the baseline? You don't have to answer that now. It's a question.
No, and I think,
You know,
that,
what the baseline is, and or can you make it better for them? You know, I'm not asking you to answer it.
I believe the, you know, if we get to the major project review, I will assure that the civil engineer is here to help answer some of those. There's a bunch of calculation. I'm not an engineer with it to tell you exactly, you know, how much rainfall, you know, happens within that amount of time and how to actually, you know, calculate where it all goes. But working together with them, I think it would be beneficial, and talking to HHP related to their drainage systems and their berms and, you know, how they manage any of that watershed, I think is important to work together.
Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Yes, Hewitt? Oh. Mr. Cordes?
To Ellen's point, has your civil engineer informed you that you need stormwater retention, underground stormwater retention?
There's
a significantly larger amount of impervious surface than what currently exists, so I'm guessing that's probably part of the solution.
You're correct that there is more impervious, not at, you know, whenever you calculate the current versus the proposed. It's not as big of a delta as you would think there. However, underground storage is a solution, as is detention, as is, you know, of course, in the construction world, we just call them ditches, you know, but those types of systems can, you know, can help this as well. So
whether or if you need those, or how
we will need some, yes, we will need some collection systems, absolutely. There's no question about it. Pervious and impervious, if you look at the med zoning map amendment that, or I'm sorry, the med text amendment that went before the ZMA, you'll see on there, I believe the impervious coverage was saying 60%. Our calculations of what we've got with the entire parcel, I mean, we're in the high 20s. So, I mean, we're considerably lower.
Other questions, comments?
Could you put the site plan back up there?
Would you like to see the overlay or the overlay of the existing?
I'd like to see what you proposed.
Oh, there's the PowerPoint.
Oh, back. How many parking spaces total and how many are along that buffer line?
So we did actually count these up not too long ago. I don't want to go on record of telling you how many are right here because I can't remember the number whenever we counted these.
Well, I mean,
but yeah, there's roughly about 27 from this midpoint, which we do see that, you know, the general sight line of these properties is the most critical in this. Certainly all of it is incredibly important to work together on. We do recognize, I mean, we're seeing what's going on. So these 27 spots right here.
Oh, I mean that whole line. How many are in that whole line?
Yeah, the entire community is 201. That is also something that.
So the whole line along that.
Sir, I mean, I can count them.
And then you got 15 feet before the other neighborhood, right?
Yes. Now, you know, LMO requirements, I believe for a 1-bedroom, you have to have 1.4 spots. A 2-bedroom, I believe, is 1.7 spots, and a 3-bedroom is 2 spots. So that comes up as 201 for the unit mix.
How small could this whole development be before it's not feasible economically?
I think it's a question we'd love to entertain, discuss with for a follow-up conversation, and we can't speak to that on the spot here.
I mean, 30% for the hospital is great. Partial for the rest. I mean, it's a pretty big development. A lot of impervious, all that parking. You've got 15 feet of buffer. It's pretty tight.
So, you know, I know we get kind of, you know, we're talking about the other 70% here. You know, there was a town council meeting yesterday. There was a discussion about the airport coming through, bringing 50 new jobs to the area. The base salary of $81,000, you know. That puts you right at the baseline for some of these AMI levels. So you've got 50 new jobs coming in. Where are they going to live? You know, this is, you know, that other 70% is designed to support the hospital as they need it, and then support the rest of our island. So, you know, I don't think that, you know, it's you know, I was talking to the high school the other day. You know, the high school is the lowest attended high school on record of the last 8 years for Hilton Head High School. And I asked them straight out, and they said, well, it's because we don't have any young families here. You know, so we're not bringing any young families. We don't have people that want to start their careers here. Communities like this start your careers on Hilton Head.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, are we at the point where we could make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Swaley?
Similar to the text amendment, I this point, we'd make a motion to postpone, and keep it open until September 17th.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Passes unanimous. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. All right, if you all could take the conversation outside, we'll continue with our meeting. All right. All right, this next item will be for a public hearing and decision by Planning Commission on a public project review. A motion and vote by the commission are needed. So this is PPR 000119-2025. It's a request from Scott Harris with the town of Hilton Head Island for the public project review for a new park facility on town-owned parcel located at 252 Wild Horse Road. The affected parcel is Beaufort County Tax Map Parcel R5100000270000. It is open to public hearing, and I invite Principal Planner Brian Eber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to load this up, and committee members, I'm trying to load this up for you all. Let's talk a little bit about how we got here. In 2020, as we're developing the comprehensive plan, the town looked at kind of a needs analysis of parks. So in conducting their needs analysis, they found a real need for a neighborhood, or what they called a mini park at the time. So a mini park was identified both here for the Taylor Family Park and at the Patterson Park location as well in the 2020 master plan for the Parks and Recreation. So what's happening today is that the capital improvements program section is starting to develop the plans for the different parks. Today we have a PPR for the Taylor Family Park, and next month we'll have a PPR for the Patterson Family Park as well. But to talk specifically about a little bit about this park, it's located at 252 Old Wild Horse. I don't have my map here. And it's currently by Gumtree, Wild Horse, and then Squire Pope is not too far away. But the Taylor family donated the land to the town. And that's why it's named Taylor Park. But the land was most notably owned by the McKnight family. And the McKnight family it's really pretty cool. They were known for being farmers and fishermen. And so that really helped create the theme of what the park is going to be. We were able to create some interpretive signage and trails being proposed that relates back to the family that was there originally. Be a very creative park, an area for contemplation, a small garden, a playground with fishing themed elements, surrounded by our typical pavilions, parking, and a playground. So it's like most of our parks, but maybe on a smaller scale, but maybe with more meaning because of where the land sits. Elements of the design, of course, will be low country in nature, but we're gonna treat the trail system in a more natural way, because this land has not been developed upon, and to preserve what we have and retain the knowledge that's there. There was a meeting on Monday with the neighbors, and a couple of the members recall going to the land and visiting the site with the McKnights. And there's a special pecan tree that's there, and it's about almost 60 inches diameter, and so it's a rather very large, and you can see some of the young pecans that have grown up next to it. It's really just a very dramatic feature of that park. So we'll play upon that and do that delicately. We have the park designers here if you'd like to hear from them at all, but we did take great care and ensure that this park was part of the 2020 master plan for the Parks and Rec, and it meets the location, character, and extent of the adoption or of the comprehensive plan, and that's really what we're asking you all to decide for us today, if we are in alignment with our comprehensive plan. Any questions you have of me or
Do
designers?
you have a schematic of the parks that they
I
developed?
do. I do. I'm having a challenge opening those. Do you know where those might be located? Oh, just scroll down.
Yeah.
No, I'll scroll down. So this is kind of the project site location. Obviously, William Hilton. This is Gumtree. This is Wild Horse, and this is Squire Pope. We'll zoom in a little closer. Again, this is the roundabout on Squire Pope to go to the back gate of Hilton Head. There's the Gumtree. And this is the site. Now, the site has a lot of wetlands on it, so we're mindful of that. We're protective of that, and we'll ensure that we pre-treat any runoff before it enters those wetlands. And then I have here, I might have to zoom out a little bit. This is our current concept for the park. Again, we'll have a playground area, pavilion area, place for parking, and again, a very naturalized, low impact trail system as a result. A key aspect of it, I think, is integrating the existing pathway across Wild Horse to make sure people can enter the park from the neighborhood that live on the opposite side of Wild Horse. I wish I had this earlier. Because I don't think this was quite describing the limits of the park. Any other questions?
Any questions? I'll tell you what, before we bring it back up to the dais, how about if I invite the public for any comment that they may have? Yes, ma'am. You come and state your name, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Nell Barnwell Hay. I'm a fifth generation Gullah Geechee woman. And the park is very impressive. I went to the presentation on Monday night, but I do have a question about my tax bill. Will this affect my taxes? Will my taxes go up? And what about the stormwater drainage? Would the water from the park drain on my property on Wild Horse Road? Those are two concerns that I would like to have addressed.
Okay, thank you very much. And if you could talk to staff before you leave here today, we will get your address and contact information.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
you.
Anyone else? All right, we'll bring it back up to the dais. Any questions? Would the architects like to add anything?
I think I can, her question about the stormwater runoff is a very good question. Currently, all of the runoff that the park would have would flow through into where number 17 is up here. So we're gonna direct the water, no water's gonna be directed down Wildflower, so it'll be directed towards number 17, and that's a stormwater basin. I can't answer your tax questions, but we'll get you information and provide you the best answer we can.
Okay, thank you. Public hearing's closed. Again, back up. Questions from the dais here? Comments? All right, well, hearing none, would somebody like to make a motion on this item?
Clarification, Chairman, are we being asked to move this forward, or can you clarify what we're being asked at the moment?
Yeah, we're being asked, this is a public review. It's a public project review. I believe, well, would you care to answer the question?
Sure. So the Planning Commission has to make a decision on whether or not the proposed development is consistent with or conflicts with the comprehensive plans and goals, and you vote on whether you approve this plan.
And I make a motion to approve this plan and move it forward, and I find it consistent with our overall goals and plans.
Motion made by Commissioner Lowball. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Seabold. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, next is public comment for non-agenda items. Staff, were there any comments submitted for non-agenda items?
Chester Williams, did you want to?
Pass? None? Okay, well, we'll move on then to commission business. First item of business is we have 2 vacancies in our subcommittee, the Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force, and we need nominations to fill those 2 positions. Do I have a nomination for those positions? Just Commissioner Seabold.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Commissioners Lobaugh and Hewitt to be the 2 representatives from the Planning Commission to serve on the Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, let's vote on the pair of Hewitt and Lowball for those 2 positions with the Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Great, thank you very much. Approved unanimously. There is a second item on the agenda, appointment of board secretary for July 1st through June 30th, 2026. We're going to take that item up at a later meeting. And brings us to staff reports. This item will be for the presentation of a development plan review for comment by the Planning Commission in regards to the North Point Workforce Housing Project. A motion and vote are not required by the commission, but our comments will be incorporated into staff's plan review. This time I'd like to ask Senior Planner Michael Connolly to give us a presentation.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, if Michael has no objection, I'd appreciate the honor to provide an update on the North Point initiative. This is particularly exciting for me today because we discussed this at length back in March. And I also have with us today Brendan Barr, who's a managing partner and chief operating officer of One Street Residential, our development partner. We also have Robin with us, who is the project executive, and we have all worked together very closely, and between the 3 of us, we can answer any questions that you may have today. This is really a brief update and an opportunity to share where we're at and answer any questions. We all remember where the site is located. This is background since the Planning Commission. We talked about a lot of background leading up to the Planning Commission meeting on the 19th. But on the 19th, the Planning Commission held the public hearing and unanimously supported a recommendation to Town Council to approve both the ZMA and the text amendment. That was reviewed by the Town Council Committee. The committee also recommended unanimously to forward that to Town Council. Upon first reading at Town Council, we received a unanimous support from Town Council upon first reading, second reading, and that's what put the zoning in place and allowed the One Street team to secure their financing. And at the Town Council workshop recently, that's when One Street as well as RBC announced that RBC will be both a debt and equity partner in North Point, which is super exciting for us, especially, I mean, Brendan and I have been talking about this for 3 years, and the fact that I can say it publicly, it means a lot. And what are the next steps? We have received the DPR support for both the conceptual and the final approval. The DRB, the Design Review Board, unanimously supported both conceptual and final. Really, really well received. The goal is to start construction by January 2026. When One Street and RBC attended our Town Council workshop, they both committed to doing their best to start construction by the end of this year. And substantial completion would be in 2027. It's about an 18-month build. We think it's about 14 months until the first units are released. So our goal is to have folks moving into apartments in early 2027. The scope of the project, we've talked about this at length, but it's 11 acres of town-owned land. It's a great location. It's energy efficient, sustainable neighborhood, high quality construction, 127 rental units. Early on, we were talking about what is the capacity of the site. We took a deep dive into understanding what the site would yield. And with a combination of 1, 2, and 3-story buildings, the site yields 157 units. I mentioned that because the development agreement said that it could go up to 170 if the site could support 170. Well, it can't. 157 fits perfectly on this property. It also includes a dedicated apartment for the full-time property manager, a 2-bedroom apartment. It includes other amenities and programming as well that focus on the well-being and quality of life of residents. There's a community building with high-speed internet. There's a pool with outdoor communal spaces, grilling, pavilions, seating, and playground. One thing the DRB said is, this is great. This isn't what you would typically expect when you think about workforce housing, but this is a Class A apartment community with Class A amenities. It's something that's gonna make all of us really proud. Walking trails, indoor and outdoor fitness stations, community garden, laundry appliances in each individual unit. And this is for Hilton Head Island's essential workforce. Teachers, first responders, healthcare providers, and a whole lot more. But Commissioner Redmond and others mentioned today serving the island's workforce. North Point, you have to work on Hilton Head Island to live at North Point. That's really special, and that's something that we heard from the community loud and clear. It'll serve 60 to 150% of the area median income, with at least 50% of the units serving that 60 to 80% of the AMI. And that comes directly from RBC's partnership. Their investment in this initiative includes that term, that at least 50% of the units have to serve under 80% of the AMI. There will also be affordability covenants on the property, so it will remain a workforce neighborhood. The goal is in perpetuity forever. The town is granting a 65-year ground lease on the property. So after 65 years, all the improvements will come back to the town. But the intent is that this will be able to serve folks forever. We talked about this at the last Planning Commission meeting, but the connectivity to the school campus is really important. And we've been working closely with the U.S. Postal Service, and it has taken a lot of coordination. I was thrilled when Mayor Perry received a letter from the U.S. Postal Service of their intent to sell 1.8 acres to the town. And that's something that I need to continue working through, particularly as I bring that forward to Town Council for their consideration. But that allows for really safe connectivity to the school campus. We've studied this area a lot, and Gumtree Road, I mean, really from School Road all the way down We can do a better job with connectivity to the school campus, and that'll be incorporated part and parcel as a town CIP initiative as North Point advances. Here's our site plan. Super proud. We talked about this with the Planning Commission. We have 55% common and accessible open space. That's best practices. We have bioretention areas throughout the site to collect and infiltrate water. Really good connectivity throughout the site. We have lots of common open space. We asked our development partner to land plan the multi-purpose pathway. That's ultimately a town's responsibility to construct that, but it's laid out really nicely in relation to the community. We studied the neighborhood up in Marsh Point. We know that those are 2-story buildings and they are about 35 feet in height. So we land planned the buildings on the northern part of the property as also 2-story, 35 feet in height. So it's very much neighborhood scale. We have some 3-story buildings, we have some 1-story buildings, really nice pool area, dog park. We also wanted to preserve this area along Jarvis Creek. There's about 1.5 acres that'll be preserved in perpetuity to ensure good water quality and a nice amenity for the residents of North Point. One question that I've received a lot, back when we talked to the Planning Commission, y'all wanted to see some elevations, which I look forward to sharing as well. But another question I've received a lot is, what is this gonna look like from William Hill Parkway? And if we go back to the site plan, it was important for us to have the development at least 100 feet off of the edge of pavement. And you can see we've accomplished that. I know the LMO allows some flexibility within the adjacent street buffer, but we wanted to make sure as we presented this to the community that we didn't take advantage of that flexibility other than the multi-purpose pathway, so that it could really be set back. And I've lived off Marshland Road for about 25 years, and I think of the apartments. They were Greystone Lock, now it's Summer House, but as you're coming down the western side of Marshland Road, they're set back and it's heavily wooded, and that's a nice look. But this is what you see from William Hill Parkway. Yeah, you'll know there's an apartment in there, but it's set back. Here's a better view. But it's heavily vegetated, and especially with those loblolly pines and a lot of understory, it creates a nice thick buffer area. And then we look at the elevation plans. It was really important to have a lot of accessible open space throughout the community. And across the street here is the pool. We have a yoga garden. We have an edible garden on the site. And I love this elevation, but as you're coming from the post office, from that new frontage road, you're coming in, here's our leasing office, 1-story, this is the gym, the pool's behind it, 2-story back on the northern portion of the site. But the goal today is really to bring you up to speed and share our progress. And like I said, between Brendan, Robin, and I'm sure we can answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, great presentation, and kudos to you and your team here at the town with your development partners. Very exciting, very much needed, and yeah, thank you very much. Comments, questions? Yes. Mr. Cordes.
I just have one question. I'm looking at it, and it makes sense how people are gonna leave this community and go off island. I think that looks easy. How did they go the other way? What's the egress to go to, say, the hospital?
Great question. I went through that pretty quickly. This is where we talked about the enhanced pedestrian connectivity. We are also going to place a frontage road here. And the goal of that is to primarily serve the school campus and folks that will need to be heading east. Because right now North Point is one way in, one way out, so it's westbound only. And I've talked at length with our traffic engineering department to understand what that means to traffic circulation in the area. And I'm happy to get into the details, but just to give a high-level overview, they explain that based on the use and the unit count, something like this in the morning During the peak hour, the busiest hour in the morning creates around 70 peak trips, 70 to 75 depending on how they model it. And what that means is about 50 cars are leaving during that hour, and about 20 cars are coming in. And then they went on to further say that they believe about 60% are gonna head west, about 40% are gonna come through. And I asked, what does that mean? And I use simple math, but let's say it's 50-50 and there are 50 vehicles. That means that during that busiest hour in the morning that there are anticipated to be about 25 vehicles coming through here during that period. And it's interesting. I've spent a lot of time looking at especially Aquaterra and the apartments on Marshland, but we don't see a lot of heavy stacking for these apartment buildings. And I think it's in large part because the distribution of trips for the various jobs on Hilton Head. But hopefully that answers your question.
So I'm a little confused. You say this is going to be employees.
Yeah.
So how could it be 60% traffic west? So if these are all employees, most of the employment is on the eastbound side of the island. So how could 60% of the trips be westbound in the morning? And then the other question I have, so that's kind of cognitive dissonance for me. The other question I have is, in the afternoon, especially when businesses are dropping stuff off at the post office and the school's letting out, and the school buses come down Bus Drive and make the left on Gumtree, I've sat at that Circle K intersection. There's no light there because the light's over here in William Hilton. I've sat there 5 or 10 minutes in the afternoon if I forget I shouldn't have gone there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But people will, because businesses are dropping off their packages for the day and stuff. So those aren't my two questions. I don't understand how it's 60% west in the morning if these are employees. And I don't ask you to solve it now, but I'm concerned about the afternoon during the school year. That little leg between William Hill Parkway and the Marsh Point Hilton Head Post Office exit to the school you can sit there for just smedging.
There's no question that intersection can use improvement. And as you all know, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I ask a lot of questions to our engineering team. And as they're doing their modeling, they're looking at folks who are going to the south end of the island, who may not necessarily turn eastbound here, who could go to Spanish Wells, who could use the Cross Island. But they model this. I hope that answers your question.
Except they get to the Cross Island by coming down Gumtree Road, right? So you just shift traffic. I'm gonna have to solve it now. It's not making any sense to me.
And there's no question that over time that whole Gumtree area can be improved.
Other questions, comments?
Right here. Just, first of all, if you could go back to that rendering you just showed, I think the architecture is, from my opinion, getting better and better. It looks great. But two questions. What is the developable footprint in acreage? Just a guess.
The entire site is 11.33 acres.
Okay, great.
So that is the developable site.
And then the second question is, you talked about associated building heights in Marsh Point and what you were limiting yours to. If you go back to that rendering, you're saying that's about 35 feet to the, is that true? You showed that rendering, but then you showed a 3-story. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Closer to 45 feet.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's the side that's closer.
I don't have an issue with that. I'm just trying to get the information for comparison.
Our goal was to have neighborhood scale, so to have the variety. What we absolutely didn't want was everything at 45. We thought it looked
Yeah, and you're stepping back and down at various places, right?
And it's always a balance, because we want to provide as much workforce housing as possible, but we have to respect Hilton Island character.
Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Siebold, yep.
Real quick, just out of that 12 acres, you have 12 acres?
Just shy. 11.33.
How much of that is wetlands?
There are no wetlands on that. I can
Okay.
show you the footprint of the site, but the wetlands don't start until Jarvis Creek, and we've had this delineated, and the property line is the wetland line.
So you can use it all.
We could, but we strategically are not using part of the site.
Looks good. All right, thanks.
Commissioner Sebo.
Yeah, I wanted to add my congratulations to that of the chairman for your work on this project, and also to thank you for the amount of time that you invested on keeping everybody informed along the way. I know you spent a lot of time with me in my former role as chair, and you've done a wonderful job of communicating what you're trying to do and how you're adapting to input and all that sort of thing. So thank you for listening and adapting and informing.
Thank you. I consider this a generational opportunity, and I'm just blessed to have the opportunity, so thank you.
Shall we end on that high note?
I make a motion to adjourn.
There we go.
Thank you.